Welcome to the Murowitz Center program today with our guest, Nick Warmann, and he's going to talk about online. We have people coming in. Hold on just a second. Internet and online safety. Nick is a fourth-year cybersecurity student at Maryville University. He has a minor in application development, but most of his passion lies in ethical hacking and incident response. His interest in technology and his experience as a consultation agent at Best Buy have helped prepare him to prepare others for the dangers of the internet. And he hopes to help everyone here today to better understand the attackers' goals and capabilities and are better prepared to address these situations when they come up on your computer. So please welcome Nick, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'll have some introduction slides here. Let me go ahead and share the PowerPoint screen with you. Can you all hear me all right? Can you see this? Everything working? Okay. And kind of like was said earlier, if you have any questions during, feel free to raise your hand and we'll answer those then. I'm not afraid to be interrupted or anything like that. But let's go ahead and get started here. Hopefully everyone that's going to show up is showing up. But I'm Nick Warmann. I'm going to talk to you about internet security today and just a quick overview about myself. Like was kind of mentioned earlier, I'm a fourth-year cybersecurity student at Maryville University. A lot of my passion lies in that incident response and ethical hacking. That's kind of what my degree focus has been on recently. I have taken just about anything, so if you have any questions about the field, feel free to ask me. I also have a minor in application development, which helps me understand the security of apps that are created and other things like that as well. And I work part-time as a consultation agent for Geek Squad, and that's at Best Buy. So really any problems you have, hardware, software, I have a lot of people come in quite often for virus, security, scams, things like that as well. So there's a beautiful picture of my badge there. I look fairly the same. It was taken fairly recently here. Okay, so real quick, I'm going to go over what is actually hacking and what are hackers, and kind of help you understand that most of the time, hackers are very specifically trained. They require a lot of education, a lot of time, a lot of commitment, a lot of coding practice, things that you would go to school for realistically, or you would spend a lot of time self-learning. So the actual amount of hackers out there is fairly limited. It's a very specialized field. They usually target high profit organizations or individuals. And they do this through concepts like phishing, which we'll talk about more, which is where you create a false email with false information, try to get you to click things, open things. And I'll kind of go over how you can spot those later here. Ransomware, which is where they lock you out of your device, and then they essentially try to make you pay for that information back, whether that's your computer login or specific files. Brute forcing is password breaking. So you have like a 4-digit PIN code usually on your phone or something like that. Those are fairly not secure. So they just run a bunch of numbers through a system until it gets into your phone. And they target computer vulnerabilities, which is part of that like training and kind of how they usually access information. But they're more a corporate focus. Usually when you have that much specialization, you're going for the money. You spend a lot of time trying to get the big bucks and the big organizations, like Facebook. I'm sure you guys have seen some of the news articles as of late, especially with COVID, with like the SolarWinds hack and other things like that. Again, if you have any questions about those, feel free to ask me. But what we're going to focus on a little more today is scammers and scamming specifically. They are not professionals. They usually are trained kind of in how to get into your computer and maybe what to look for, but they don't know how to put really malicious things on your device. They don't develop that. They don't create that. They're usually briefly trained and kind of understand the concepts, but they can't really create or develop anything on their own. What a scammer usually uses and what they focus on is they will lie to you. They will get you to trust them. And that is usually how they get information out of you. They do use some sources of, software information. Usually what you'll see is you'll see phishing emails, you'll see phone pop-ups, fake voicemails is actually a really common thing. I'm sure, because I have definitely gotten it, that you guys have gotten, you've won, this money, or your credit card's expired, call back. And you call them and no one answers, or it's not your credit card company. So that's a really common method they use as well here. But what scammers' main focus and talent lies in is kind of this concept of you're only as secure as knowledgeable as you are, or more specifically, the best way to steal information, to hack someone, to find vulnerabilities is actually the human aspect of technology, which is a little bit of why I'm here today to talk. But some just quick statistics here is that phishing attacks have gone up 600% since COVID-19. Now, that's mostly because people are at home now. So, they're on their home network, they're on their home Wi-Fi, they're on their own emails, and that's what you do. You go through your emails all day. And it's more efficient for them to do that when you're at home because it's less secure. A lot of corporations have things set up so that if you got a phishing email, it immediately went to your trash bin or anything like that. Sometimes those home networks just aren't as secure or robust at that. So that's part of why that has increased. Social engineering attacks, part of 98% of cyber attacks. So 98% of the time when we have a breach, when we have a real attack, usually the initial aspect and way that they got into a network or got information was actually because of a human error, not the computer, not the actual system. So it's really important that we focus on that. And not to scare you here, but this one's a very interesting statistic here. 73% of black hat hackers, also known as unethical hackers, the criminals out there, will say that your traditional firewall and antivirus security is irrelevant to them. So I really, really want to focus on making sure that you guys can spot everything, that you kind of understand what you can do, because sometimes that internal security system isn't going to be enough. So you need to be able to spot it. And social engineering, again, is all about that human aspect of things. So there's all sorts of ways that they can target you through phishing emails, through fake phone calls, through even sometimes breaking your password because it's maybe your birthday or something like that. Sorry. Okay, so what are scammers after? I usually refer to them as petty criminals. They're usually after your personal information because they can sell it on the internet. So that's anything like your name, your phone number, your address, your social security number, any health information, that's covered by HIPAA, anything like that. Just pure cash is also something that they will try to get from you. Usually you'll see this in the form of either getting your credit card information or asking you to purchase gift cards, prepaid cards. If you know what PayPal or Venmo is, it's an online, basically bank account that's not through your bank, it's through a private company, and they'll try to get that account information and use it as well. So that's kind of what they're targeting. They're targeting your money. Now, there's actually a couple of ways that scammers can get some of this personal information originally. And I call these legitimate sources because you use them. They're great. I'm going to take a minute here to kind of make you think, where have you heard of maybe a company or software or something that you've used before selling your private information? Because there's one really big one that most people can recognize, and that is Facebook. That's right. So Facebook has actually been in lawsuits and been in courts because they sell your private information. you know, when you make your account, when you put your name in, your birthday, anything like that, your phone number, they would sell those to third-party applications. So if you notice, maybe you set up a Facebook account and then within a week or two that you got a scam phone call, that's not necessarily a coincidence. It could be, but usually there's an origin for where they got your phone number. Some other forums other than Facebook, you'll see it in like sweepstakes if you sign up for those now. Again, these are legitimate because they're actually providing you the service, or, you know, they're doing something for you, but they also, you know, when you sign that giant terms and agreements section, they have some hidden information like, oh, we can sell you information, anything like that. So I'm not asking you to read through that because I don't. I try to, but you know, it's pretty long. Just be a little more wary of, you know, hey, they could be selling this private information. If something's optional, I usually say, you know, skip it. You don't have to put information in that's personal, and it's probably a good idea not to. Again, sweepstakes are a really good example because they just ask for your phone number and name usually. And then they still put you in the sweepstakes, but then they just go around and they sell all that information to third parties. And that's actually where they make a lot of the money to support that sweepstakes. Credit reporting companies also tend to do this. You know, if you're like trying to look up your credit score and your bank account doesn't necessarily have that information, those companies have been well known and documented to sell it. So then there's also illegitimate sources. So this is anything that's been hacked. And when I say hacked information, I mean anything obtained through unauthorized access. So in those legitimate sources, again, you gave them permission for that information. You signed that terms and agreements. Anytime you didn't authorize that information and it got in the hands of someone that it wasn't supposed to, that's broadly what you would refer to as hacked information. This can be any method of sources, you know, phishing emails. They cracked that password. Someone sent it to you that wasn't supposed to. They saw your sticky notes on your front desktop screen that had your passcode on there and they copied it over. So phishing email is kind of separate from hacking information, but fairly similar. You know, it's anything that they got from those false links or emails that they have set up in there. All right. How a scammer scams you. So what they do. So usually you're going to see a couple of methods, kind of the phishing emails that I talked about, or they're going to send you pop-ups like your computer has been infected by a virus. They're going to call you, leave a voicemail, try to get information that way. But the way they do it is by lying. So they'll pretend to be someone reputable. Hey, I'm blah, blah, blah from Microsoft, and your security is outdated, or someone tried to get into your account. They will lie, they will cheat, they will do anything that they can to get that information from you. So the best way is to be a little worried about, you know, who you're talking to. Try to get some verification. Hey, can I have an employee number? Can I speak to a manager? Anything like that sometimes can really quickly help you figure out if who you're talking to is legitimate from that actual organization. So they'll prey off your emotions. You know, it's again about that human aspect. Usually they do fear tactics. So kind of once maybe you've caught on, they'll say things like, don't tell anyone, we're already in your computer. If you tell anyone this is happening, we'll lock you out, or we'll spend all the money on your cut. Don't listen to them, okay? Most of the time, if they're telling you that, that means they haven't actually gained access yet. They're still trying to. Because if they had access to all your credit card information, they wouldn't be telling you, no, you got to finish this, don't tell anyone. They would just have taken all that money. So that's kind of a thought process that maybe sometimes you can ask yourself in that situation is, you know, why are they telling me this, or why are they asking me this? And sometimes you can kind of break it down from there and figure out a good stopping point for cutting them off, you know, hanging up the phone, or contacting someone else instead. Like I said, they will lie to you. Some common lies I've heard or seen is they'll tell you, you know, your computer's been hacked. You can purchase this antivirus. It'll never happen again. I suggest always having an antivirus on your computer already. Having an antivirus, though, won't fix if your computer is hacked. It's not a repair system or anything like that. It's more of a preventative measure. So anyone that's trying to sell you that after the fact to fix anything is lying to you. I'm just trying to help you is a very common thing I hear is, oh, they just kept saying they were trying to help me. They were trying to help me. Unfortunately, they're not. It's a really cruel system that they've set up just to get some money. But you have to be careful. You have to be a little bit cautious. I've heard this before that people often think, oh, phone calls are always safe. You know, it's from a reputable source. There was no reason for me to think otherwise. And you do have to be a little skeptical whenever you're on the internet, whenever you're taking a phone call, whenever you can't see that person in front of you and can't really verify whether what they're saying or doing is legitimate. You have to be a little cautious. Maybe ask a friend if they've ever used that, or a grandchild or a sibling. Usually are some good personal go-to connections, and they can kind of help you through that. Again, this lie that if you tell anyone you'll be locked out or they'll steal all your money, anything like that, again, it's a lie. Don't listen to it. If they do gain access to your computer and can lock you out, there's ways that you can fix that for a lot cheaper than what they're offering. So don't freak out. Don't panic too much about that. Your data can be recovered. Nothing to be worried about. And if they ever tell you that they've gained access to your computer and then now that they're in your network, you're in your Wi-Fi, they've escalated, anything like that. Again, just a reminder that these scammers aren't professional hackers or anything like that. They don't really know how to do that. So 99% of the time that's not something that's truthful or realistic. They don't have the expertise to do that. So let's say, unfortunately something happened and they tricked you. They were really good, because some of these guys are really good at their job. What do you do? So first thing I always like to say is, if you're in the middle of it and you don't know, but you have a little bit of an inkling, you're like, this is too good to be true, or this is what someone else is telling me, or you have any sense of concern, you can always say, give me a minute, call someone else, text someone else, see what their thoughts are, see what their concerns are, see if they trust it, or maybe just if you feel confident, you can Google, whatever organization they said they were from, or try to find some sort of verification. But usually I suggest calling someone that's close to you or texting them and seeing if they have any ideas. If you don't have anyone specific like that, you can always call a little bit of some advertising, not intentionally, but 1-800-433-5778 is that Geek Squad number, and they will talk to anyone regardless if you've paid for that service. And they will help you through that. Now, you might be on hold for a little bit, but they will help you through this as well. So if there's no one else that you can really think of, no one you have any idea of, you want someone specifically to talk to, that is an option. You can also always call the FTC, which is the federal reporting agency. If you have someone that's scamming you, you want to report that, you want to do something good, you want to make sure no one else falls into that same section. That's that 1-877-382-4357. And again, Judy's going to send this PowerPoint to everybody, so you'll have those phone numbers if you didn't write them down or anything like that.
So do we have questions? This is a lot of information and very helpful. Thank you, Nick. So you could raise your hand. Do you want to stop your share? And I can send this information, these contacts in an email to everyone as well. So now we can, Linda, go ahead.
Hi, I have a couple of questions, Nick. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, Linda.
Could you talk about cookies, not chocolate chip, but how cookies work?
Yes, sure. That's a great one. I wish I put that on the PowerPoint. So cookies are basically information that is stored from when you browsed on the internet. So, hey, I was on Facebook earlier. Facebook will actually save some of that information onto your computer or through that internet. So you'll actually see that they do this either for recording information, or they'll do this so that to like save passwords. So if you type that password in ever and you hit like save this password for next time, anything like that, it's actually recording those cookies. Sometimes cookies are recorded directly onto that hardware, onto that computer. You can always wipe those, and I can actually walk you through real quick how to do that if you would like. Usually it's all connected through the browser that you're using. So if you use Google Chrome, you can clear it through Chrome. If you're using Internet Explorer, you can clear it through Internet Explorer. So if you would like, I can kind of show you briefly how to do that. Would that be okay, G?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna share. Let's share Google. Now I won't have anything because I don't use this computer very often, but for demonstration purposes, it will not be a problem. Okay, so you opened up. Can you see this? Is this
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Cool.
Sounds
so
great.
You opened up a a standard Google or Internet Explorer. They're pretty much in the same place. And let's say you went to Facebook. Can't spell Facebook. You logged in, whatever, and you wanted to clear that information, or for whatever reason, because most of the time you don't really need cookies on your computer. It's things that other sites are storing. You can actually just go to history. Is usually the easiest way for me to get to it. So Control H is actually a shortcut. And there's this option here to clear your browsing data. So we'll see pretty much, I only have things from up to Wednesday here. But let's say, for whatever reason, I didn't want this information on here. So there's this option in history called clearing browsing data. And you just click that and it'll give you this pop-up. And it'll give you that option to clear those cookie and other site data. And again, that's just stuff that they've kind of saved when you were on there, whether it's auto-saving for passwords, things like that, or just so that they can advertise for you. That's also a common thing that they use these cookies and data sites for, is like, hey, we tracked that you clicked this, 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 and this. Now we're going to advertise that you want that. So if you've been looking at trucks, it's going to advertise trucks for you. So if you clear that, usually that helps alleviate some of those specific ads that you can do all time. If you just wanted to clear those cookies, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and clear everything because cache data is that stuff that was stored on that computer. It's all temporary though. Most of the time with these browsing histories, if you turn off your computer, anything that was saved onto the computer, anything that was saved essentially to that memory is cleared. So that's how the cache works. It's temporary storage.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions about that, Linda, or did that help you at all?
Yeah,
Well, Nick, I would also like to add, excuse me, I'm sorry, I interrupted, Linda. If you don't mind, after this program, if you could send me like just an email with like step 1 to clear cookies, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it is pretty, but it's sometimes easier to follow for us people who like to follow the directions on paper.
Yeah, so I can make a little
just a little list, and then I can send it to everyone. That would be wonderful. That would be absolutely wonderful. So Barbara, you had, I'm sorry, Linda, did you have another question, please?
Yeah, I didn't want to monopolize. I had another question.
Oh, please.
Sometimes I'll get a pop-up that asks me to for my location. Should I allow? You hit allow location, or what does that do actually?
So that usually does more or less exactly what it says. It's you giving permission to that site or that application if it pops up on your phone or anything like that. It's allowing them to have access to where you are at that time. So you'll see that often with maybe Snapchat if you use that, FaceTime, anything, stores. Like if you go to Walmart.com, it'll usually ask you for your location. And that's so that, you can find the closest Walmart and see their inventory, anything like that.
Is that ever dangerous? Is it ever dangerous to do it?
You can say that, it's dangerous. It is one of those things that sites will sometimes sell as personal information, kind of like where you've been, where you live sometimes is gleamable from that. I don't necessarily think it's like something that's super concerning if it's from a fairly trusted source, like I said, that Walmart. Facebook. But if you're on a site that you've never really used before, you don't really know what it does, anything like that, I would suggest not allowing them until you have some kind of reason to trust it.
Nick, this is Shar, and I was just going on to what Linda was asking the question. I didn't hear you define what cookies are.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Okay, sure. So cookies are, it's basically temporary, well, can be browsing information. So if you go on a website, let's say you went on Walmart and you searched for cookie trays, it would actually save that temporarily in your browser. That information would be saved there. And then when you go back on Walmart in a week, if you click that search button, it'll pull up that you search those cookie trays. It'll save that behind the scenes as well, so that maybe when you're on a different website, or if you're on Walmart again, it'll advertise those cookie trays. So it's just information that is saved from that site you're on, essentially.
So it's not anything that can be detrimental to me. Is that correct?
If, for instance, you had autosave passwords on it, anything like that, it's always possible that someone else could get that information. If that information that you saved is something that's important to you, you don't really want maybe your ISP or that company kind of knowing that you've still been searching for that, or you're still looking for that, then you can consider it detrimental. In terms of security, it's not gonna make you less secure or anything like that. So it's not something that you really have to clear or remove or anything like that. It's just one of those, more privacy-based things.
Thank you.
Does that help you? Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And Barbara Sopp had your hand up, please.
Yes. Occasionally in the past, I've gotten emails from people I know saying my email has been hacked. What should I do if a friend is hacked? And then also, if I'm hacked, how do I know if I'm hacked, if my email is hacked?
Sure. So that's a great question. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in that PowerPoint, but I have no problem touching it here. Sometimes it's kind of hard to know if you're hacked. Usually if you see that, if your friends are telling you that, you've been sending emails or you've been hacked, chances are you have. If you see that you've been sending things that you haven't remembered sending, that's usually a pretty good indicator. And this is email specific. But if you ever have any worries or concerns about having been hacked or anything like that, I always just suggest you change your password. Because all that access to that email or your computer or anything like that, if you change your password, they no longer have access to it. Again, if they're really proficient at their job, that's not always necessarily true, but most of the time with these people that are just getting into your email and sending things out like that, they just know your password, that's all. So they're just using that password to get in and send things, change things. So as long as you change that password, most of the time you're pretty well off.
Thank you.
Maxine, do you have? Oh, I'm sorry. Just hold on. I saw Maxine first, and then we'll go on to the next person.
Hi, Nick. Quick questions. As I'm listening to your amazing presentation, thank you, first of all, for enlightening many people, including myself, who am embarrassed to admit several years ago, even though our son works at Microsoft, I was hacked by someone pretending they were Microsoft. So I know how frightening the whole experience is. On a more gentler kind of annoyance is the constant phone calls while I'm on. My landline just gave me 2 of one. I blocked the first one, and then because I'm on the no call list and I know how to do that. And then of course, then they send a private caller phone right after. I don't mind that as much. I'm not home that it annoys me that much, but on my cell phone, when you get a list of calls, like 20, it says your cell phone number and like 20 other calls with similar cell phone numbers. Is there any way besides just going back out and blocking each one individually that I can try to deter that from happening. I don't mind the occasional false one saying they're AT&T and they paid my bill, because I can block one or two, but the new duplicate ones get on my nerves.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Maxine, I'm not sure if there is a great way to do that, because yeah, usually I just say, use the no call list, block that number. Sometimes I know certain cell phone services will actually provide, systems where they'll actually block that number if they've noticed that that person calls en masse, which kind of sounds exactly what they've done. So you can try maybe talking with whoever your phone provider is, and they might be able to help you with that. But as far as I'm aware, just from an individual standpoint, there's not really any methods that you can do that to block those. Now, there could be, I unfortunately just don't know. So that might be something I'll look into. And if I see anything about that, I'll add that in my step-by-step email process here later.
Thank you.
So we have a couple of people. We have Leanne, then Marilyn, and then Faith. Leanne, go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One, I want to follow up on the cookies again. I don't have Facebook. I don't do anything but, emails or researching something that I might be interested in. Yeah. And oftentimes cookies will come up, and I've been told that it simply will expand, which I'm not sure what it is I'm looking up. I'm not sure what that means. Is that?
Yeah. So that concept of expansion is kind of how I talked about, where like there's a reference point where it's like, if you search something before, it'll kind of show up again. It'll show you more things like that, similar to that.
Even though it's the particular thing that I'm looking up for the first time, something I'm looking up, never, looked up before, some information about, let's say, a place, that I want to go to. Is that?
Yeah, if you do it once, there's not necessarily a guarantee that you'll see it again, but it is definitely more likely. And the more often you search the same thing, the more often it's all incredible. It's really quite smart and incredible. It's kind of like, if you talk about something once, that person that you talk to it about might not really remember it, but if you keep mentioning it, it'll definitely show up more often.
And then also, in the last couple of years, we have received hundreds of emails that we never have anything to do with. Now, is this a matter of people selling your email? Is that why? I mean, we're sitting there, Harvey sits there every night, delete, 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 delete. And yeah. I used to laugh, but now I've been getting it too. Hundreds. I mean, why is that?
I mean, you're absolutely right. That is totally one of those examples of someone has gotten that email information. They sold it to someone either on the dark web, which is, a scary term for just something that's not entirely protected. You can.
But a lot of them are political. A lot of political things.
Yeah, I actually have something very similar that happened to me a while back, where I signed up for something with my email, and I keep getting sent things about political stuff, and it has absolutely nothing to do with me. Like, I don't live in Michigan. Why am I getting Michigan stuff?
Okay.
But
so is there anything to do about that other than just say unsubscribe? Is that what?
Unsubscribing sometimes helps. You can kind of YouTube how to block certain like email services. It's a little complicated. I usually just say, if you're having a lot of problems with that email, just make a new one, kind of go and use that one from then on, which obviously isn't great if you've given that email out to other people. But it's definitely one of those things where you can kind of find ways to block that, but it takes a little bit of time to find good ways. You can pay for services that do that. Just search like, email sorting on the internet, and you'll probably find a service that'll work for you.
Nick, is there, so along those lines, when you have someone that in our email, on our email accounts, there's a way to flag somebody who's an acceptable email. Right. Is there, like, for example, if this political information is coming from often the same email address, is there a way to flag, as you can flag an email address for appropriate and you want to get email from, is there a way to flag that email address to block it?
Usually there's a report function.
In your email, on your personal email. Okay.
Yep. And I can actually, I'll pull that up when I show you the example of my phishing email.
Okay.
But usually it's just a report scan button.
Okay.
And you click that and it'll block that address line. Now, again, kind of like that phone call. Sometimes what happens is they just make a bunch of fake email accounts and send you the same thing to different addresses. But reporting an email address as scam is definitely a good way to stop getting emails from them. Yeah.
Okay, maybe we could add that to our like little list of instructions. Now there was Marilyn, and then there was Faith, and then I see Diane, and then Sherry. So we'll keep track. So Marilyn, if you want to go, did you have a question? I think you need to unmute.
I have two questions. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Companies like LifeLock, when you give them your whole, scenario, are they safe or can they become hackers? And also, can someone, we're putting a lot on the cloud now. Everyone's putting for space because, to free up some space on the computer. What about hacking through the cloud?
Yeah, good question. So LifeLock specifically is an organization, they have a lot of privacy laws, things like that. I don't know specifically what their deal is with, what they can sell to third parties. But I believe LifeLock is, at least health information wise locked by HIPAA. So I would say they're probably less likely to sell your information. Can they become hackers? That's kind of a complicated question. They can be hacked and then that information can be accessed from the outside, which isn't really anything you can control or do anything about. It's definitely a possibility. But if you use, LifeAlert, anything like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should stop using it. It's definitely a useful tool. There's just always a possibility that that information could be leaked. Now the cloud infrastructure is really, really cool. I could probably talk for hours about, this system vulnerabilities and the possibilities and all sorts of things. But from a standard security standpoint, yes, it can be hacked, just like any other computer, any other network, anything like that. Again, it's more about from an individual standpoint, are your passwords secure? Are you doing what you should be to protect yourself? Did you click a link that you shouldn't have? Did you put your information in somewhere else? And you're usually good to go from an individual standpoint. Now, again, those cloud infrastructures can be hacked, but they aren't going to be scammed or anything like that. Again, that's someone that has a lot of information, a lot of training, has spent a long time looking at that specific infrastructure and trying to find vulnerabilities.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have Faith, and then Diane, and then Sherry. Go ahead, Faith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you, Judith. Hi, Nick. Yeah, my question goes back to passwords. You've mentioned a couple of times, changing your passwords. And the questions are two-part. One, I don't know about all the other people on the call, but we probably have 30 different passwords for different reasons, your bank, your department store, whatever. Changing the passwords can be quite cumbersome.
Yeah.
And or are you referring more to changing the password that goes to your, well, there's one that goes to your, we have Microsoft Outlook, and then there's one that goes to iCloud. So that's the first part of my question is about when you mentioned changing your password, which one?
Yeah, so when I refer to changing your password, it's very common now. I have probably 30, 40 passwords that I'm using all at one time. And I'm a little sloppy, most of the time they're just one digit different, which isn't the most secure thing, which is silly of me to say as a cybersecurity student. But ease of access sometimes. It's all about risk management. But essentially, when I say, change your password, I'm referring to, exactly, what application you're using. So if I said change your password because you think maybe your email's been hacked, you don't have to change every single password on your computer. You really just have to change that Outlook account password. Now, if you say, get really tired of changing your passwords all the time, can't remember anything, you write them down and you forget, all sorts of things like that. There is actually some services now. A lot of antiviruses actually have this built in now as well, where you can essentially put all your passwords in one account. So that account is more secure than your normal account, and it has all those passwords stored for you. So if you say we're struggling constantly with changing passwords, remembering passwords, you can actually use some of those softwares. And I'll go through one that I have a little familiarity with later if you'd like, but it's just a password manager.
Okay.
Okay.
Diane?
My question also regards passwords. If you're on a site that you use pretty frequently and they ask you right then, should we save your password? Should that be a yes or a no?
Well, it depends on how secure you feel, first off, about that website. Do you think that website is going to be hacked? I mean, that's a very broad statement, but usually saving your password is fine. There's a security system called encryption that's used with every passcode, every credit card, everything like that. And usually that's a pretty robust and good system for keeping those from being hacked. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, if I save it, it's just going to be super easy for someone else to access. It doesn't show that in what's called clear text. It shows it as a random combination of letters and numbers that make absolutely no sense for security purposes. So that if someone was able to glean some level of information from that, they wouldn't really be able to figure out what your actual password is. Now, what saving that password does, I can show you actually. Let's go back to settings here. Because I don't have this signed in, it might not actually give me the option. But there's actually an option. Oh, yeah, here it is. An autofill. So this is exactly what you're doing, is you're autofilling that password on a website. And see, it actually has all this information on what I've saved. And if you have saved a password, you can actually click this right here. There's usually an I right here, and it'll show that password to you. So the security concern then is when you're saving your passwords, you're saving them all to whatever that browser is. So if it's Google Chrome or Internet Explorer, you have an account through those. So if you save those passwords and that account gets hacked, like I had a Google account hacked probably 2 years ago, then whoever hacked that account has all of those passwords that you've saved. So it's kind of like one of those things where you have to say, oh, I'm okay with, taking that risk. It's worth it to me to have that auto saved. Usually what I say is, if it's just normal accounts, nothing really sensitive, auto saving is a perfectly good, function, nothing to be concerned about. If it's like your bank account information, government website logins, your taxes, anything like that, I suggest not using autosave, but it's all up to you.
Okay,
So
one quick follow-up. I keep all of my passwords in its own file under notes on my cell phone. Mm-hmm. But these are really kind of like benign passwords. They're for like CVS and Walgreens, sure. Nothing related to banks, because you need them and they have to be in one place. Otherwise you can go crazy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I actually think putting it on your phone is a better place than your computer because it's harder to remote into those. So someone won't be able to necessarily go through that information as organized as they would a computer. So that's a perfectly fine spot. I mean, it's not quite as secure as writing it down because, if you write it down, the only person that can see it is someone physically looking at it. But it's probably the next best step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And then Sherry, and then I see Mike after Sherry.
Okay, am I muted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
All right, this has been really helpful this morning. I appreciate it. I have a question and a comment. The comment first is that it was funny, but on my email this morning, I had a message from Amazon that my account has been locked and all pending orders.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. And I totally ignored it.
Yeah.
Because my billing does not match my credit card information. And I mean, it's not true. So I'm just ignoring that. But I thought it was really funny that I get that today.
Yeah, that's a great example of a phishing email. Yeah.
Exactly. I've never had that before with Amazon. And my question is, you talked about getting hacked on email, but how about, this has happened to me numerous times on Facebook. I've had friends tell me that you've been hacked, and every time I change my password, I do that, but then it happens again. And last time it happened was 2 months ago, and then it happened last week. So I've been off Facebook since last week now, only because, I mean, not totally off, I just haven't looked at it. So I don't know what else to do. I mean, I don't like it when my friends tell me, but I want to know. So, but I don't want to do anything dangerous.
Yeah, so if your Facebook account is being hacked constantly, that's usually either an indicator that maybe they have access to the email that you use to reset your password, or the passwords that you're using are fairly simplistic. So either they can brute force that password because, you know, it's all lowercase, it's less than 8 digits. It takes them an incredibly short amount of time to find out a password like that. If you're using an email and you do a password reset, and they have access to that email, they can also gain access to that account again.
Never happened with email, just on Facebook.
Yeah.
So make my Facebook one more not simplistic. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, that would be a good start. And if it happens again, then maybe you should look at changing some other passwords like that email password, because it's possible that they have access to that and are just being very discreet about it. But I usually recommend when you're making a passcode that it's at least 12 characters long, has an uppercase letter and a special character. That's usually going to do you pretty good. And I'll actually pull up a graphic here on some of those password security information as well. But again, 12 characters is usually long enough. If you're having trouble remembering it, phrases is a really good way to make a new password. So if you can't remember, 12 random letters, make like a phrase like cats and dogs, 13 exclamation point. Usually, I mean, that sounds like it's really easy to hack, but it's not, because it's so long. And it has that special character and a random capital letter, and you'll usually be pretty secure, pretty good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then Mike, you have your hand up.
I had a comment that somebody before asked about unsubscribing, and I've always thought that if you unsubscribe on one of those emails, that you're telling whoever it is that it's an active account and they're going to hit it harder.
Yeah, and that is definitely sometimes something that'll happen, which is why there's the scam report button instead, because that won't notify them who reported that. They won't get any information about that, because you're absolutely right. Sometimes with those, if you unsubscribe, it tells them that, hey, that email that we sent that to was a legitimate email, it was a live email. And that's kind of part of that selling third-party information is what they do is they sell millions of emails. Someone buys it for like $20 and they don't know if those emails are legit or not. So they'll make a subscription email, they'll send it out to those people. And then, yeah, whoever responds with that unsubscription or in any way will be flagged as live. So yeah, great point.
Yeah, the other point is I use a password manager, Dashlane, as a matter of fact. And I love it. It keeps track of all my passwords. When I have to change a password or I have a new account, it will generate a random password, letters, numbers, special characters. I think it's 15 characters in the password, which they're random. So if somebody were to try to brute force on it, it'd take like 3.5 billion years.
Exactly. Right, forever. Yeah, and password managers are great. The only concern I ever have with them is now you put all your passwords in one bucket. But if you have a secure password on that password manager, and you're probably good to go. And it's a great tool for securing a lot of things at once. Yeah.
It's browser based, and I've got it on Google Chrome, and on my phone, I've got it on Google Chrome also, and on my, I don't have it on my pad because I've got an older pad, but I've got it on my, so I don't have to worry about losing access because I've got access from 2 different devices.
Yeah. Does that, oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, what did you say you're using? What's the name of it?
Dashlane.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry, Nick, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just asking if Dashlane does 2-factor authentication, if you know what that is. Like when you sign into it, does it usually ask for your phone number or some other form of verification from a different device?
No, it has a master password, which my master password is 21 characters.
Yeah, you don't have to tell us what it is. That's fine.
So it's not something that's going to be easily hacked.
Yeah, I was just curious because a lot of companies now, here, give me 1 second.
Nice.
I have a door that some people are opening to see if I'm in the current office that I'm in. So I just close that. But a lot of companies now are doing what's called 2-factor authentication, which is where they'll set it up so that you can't access that account from just the device you're on. Usually you'll see this on computers where, like, I think even Facebook's doing it now. You'll try to sign into Facebook and it'll ask you to verify with a text message. They'll send your phone a text message. You'll enter that special code, and that's a preventative measure that they've kind of put in place that works pretty good for keeping people out of your accounts. So if you ever have an option to set up 2-factor authentication, I highly suggest you do it.
Yeah, I do that where it's available.
Did you, we have Marilyn and then we have Linda, and then Nick, did you say you had something else you wanted to show us yet? Or
yeah, is that... I can show here. I'll let's see where I was in the PowerPoint. Let's go ahead and answer those 2 questions, and I'll go and continue with the PowerPoint and show it.
And then after that, we have Susan. So go ahead, Marilyn. Marilyn, you need to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, I recently saw a movie about a girl who was stalked and wound up getting killed. But this hacker got, well, the problem of it was she kept her computer camera. I mean, she kept it on all the time. But this guy could literally follow her all the way around. He followed her phone, her computer. He had access to her whole life. Now, how can you prevent something like that?
Yep. So that is partially that enabling location services. If you have that enabled on everything you use, it's really easy for someone to know where you are. So I, suggest lightly, if you use your phone and you don't really want anyone to know where you are, there's an option to turn off that location service. If you're using an application and it's asking, would you like to turn location services on or a website? You can always just decline that. It's usually a pretty good preventative measure. If you don't give them permission, most of the time you're good. Now, in this case, the hacker obviously had unauthorized access to some degree. It's actually, this is a little scary. It's pretty simple to hack someone's camera. All you really need is their Wi-Fi password and their IP address and some tools. Again, those tools are pretty specific. If you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to have access to those. But with just about 20 minutes and some information you can actually hack just about anyone's camera. So I suggest covering it, getting a cover, like one of those slide things you can slide over. Yep. Now your phone is a little more complicated to hack because it has changing IP addresses. Because
you make house.
Don't know.
Always on the thin net, but.
Thank you.
So, Linda, did you have another question?
Yeah, hi. That was really more of a comment. I have a lot of times where people will send me their credit card information over email, and I just cringe. Oh no, please don't do that. Yes. So I just wanted to just put in a shout out to that if you have credit card information for a company or retailer or anything like that, you call them, or just let them know. Send them an email that you'd like to pass on that information, but never ever ever send your credit card information over email, right?
Exactly. Yes. And Linda makes a great point here. Something I want to emphasize with email specifically is, I kind of talked about how a lot of times when you put your credit card into like Walmart, anything like that, the site will say it's secured. It uses that encryption that I kind of talked about, where it kind of randomly generates things and conceals things through that. It's like an extra security lock. Your email does not have encryption. Now, Microsoft has kind of sent out some things where you can turn that on, but I still highly suggest that you don't send any incredibly private, incredibly sensitive information over email, because it's just not secure. Yeah. It's even with that encryption, this goes into some more complicated stuff like network ports and stuff, but email is sent under a non-secure network essentially all the time, as a brief explanation. So it's never a good idea to send anything sensitive under email.
Thank you, Nick. Do you have something now that Susan's going to finish off the conversation today, but did you have something else that you wanted to share with us on the screen?
I do see that we're getting a little short. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let's go ahead and screen share. Let's go ahead and do that fake email here. So can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So good news is a lot of these email systems like Gmail have actually gotten pretty good at noticing whether something's a scam or a phishing email or something like that. I created this really quick. It's not super fancy or anything like that, but I sent this to myself and I actually got this message where it said, hey, this is the first time you've gotten this. This seems kind of weird. Is this email address legitimate? Now, it's actually a email I made some mistakes. Yes, but that's always a good indicator that maybe that email isn't trustworthy. But some brief things to look at here that'll kind of help you see whether an email is special or is secure or not, is sometimes this email will look legit. Mine doesn't. There's this arrow right here, and it'll actually tell you exactly who it's from. It'll give you a different, or that's from, it'll give you like a different email here. So this could say facebook.com, and this would say the actual email.
Good to know.
So that's if you're ever like, this looks like it's a trustworthy email, and then you click that arrow and you look kind of at more of the advanced details, you can sometimes see that, hey, this email actually says Johnny Cash 3. That's not Amazon.com. If you ever have a link, like in this case, this link looks legit, www.com/facebook.com/login-reset. It seems pretty legitimate. Sometimes you can hover over. It's not going to let me on this one because I have an outdated Google Chrome, but you can actually always copy a link and you can post it into Notepad or even down here if you want, and it'll tell you exactly what it is. And see, totally a legit link.com is not the same link as facebook.com/login.reset. So it's always a good idea before you click one of these links to kind of copy it, or sometimes again, it'll show you automatically, and look at it separately, make sure it's a legitimate link, that it's going where it says it's going, because that's really easy to fix. Up here, and this is Gmail specific, I don't know what Outlook's look is going to be, but there's an option to report that as spam. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that won't notify them who did that. Again, like sometimes unsubscribing will. So that's usually a pretty good option. Okay.
Great.
Let me go ahead and pull up. If you ever do get scanned, like you get a virus, anything popping up on your screen, you can just turn off your computer. That's temporary files. If you hold the power button for 15 seconds, it'll usually close it. There's another method. Again, we're going to send this PowerPoint out. I'll put some of those steps in because we are running a little short on time. I'm going a little fast here. But you'll have information of this as well, or access to this information as well. But you can close out of those pop-ups. Because I know sometimes it pops up and it keeps popping up and you try to close it and it doesn't work. But there is a way around that. And when that happens, they haven't gained access to your computer. It's just some pop-ups come up. Kind of went over that example email. This is an email that is from a legitimate source. It just looks a little too good to be true. I wish I could be paid $300 weekly to walk a dog for 2 hours daily. That would be nice. There's some slight spelling errors and other things, but usually if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, right? Here's some antivirus examples I have here with WebRoot, Norton, McAfee are all pretty common. And they have some of those password systems as well, kind of how we talked about earlier. Ad blockers are a great way to keep some of those scammers out. You can just go to the web store on Chrome or Safari or anything like that and just type ad blocker. It'll usually come up with a good one. This is that password infographic I kind of wanted to show. It is watermarked, so it's a little hard to see because I just grabbed it from somewhere else, not my own graphic. But you know, as you can pretty much see, 10 characters of numbers, not very secure, pretty instant. Lowercase, because it's 26 characters instead of 10, takes a little bit longer, 58 minutes. But as you start adding those symbols, those other ones, as you make it a larger combination, it takes longer. So 12 digits with a number, an uppercase, and a special character takes 34,000 years. That's usually where I say you're pretty good to go. How are we doing on time? Does anyone have any other questions? Are we good to go?
We have, does anyone have any more questions?
Just want to thank you, Nick. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And then Susan, did you have a couple things you wanted to say?
Sure. I also, on behalf of the Merowith Center, want to thank Nick for this fantastic presentation. There were so many questions. It's obviously a very needed topic to discuss, and thank you for lending your expertise to us for this program. I also want to thank Linda Markowitz, I see her on the screen, and the St. Louis Senior Kollel for co-sponsoring today's program, and to our Tech Tutor funder, the Women's Auxiliary Foundation for Jewish Aged. Since you all have an interest in technology, I just want to tell you very quickly about 2 other programs, Tech Tutor programs. We have on Mondays a Tech Tutor here at the Merowith Center from 11 until 3:30 p.m. And he tutors people in person with their devices. So you can make an appointment and you can come and you can meet with him, and he will actually teach you how to use whatever device you are struggling with. So you can call me about that if you would like to become a part of that program. And then the other program I want to talk to you about is our next online program, which is about Facebook. It's called Facebook 101. And I know Facebook was mentioned many times today. So if you have an interest in that, it is a 4-part program. It's going to be with Sam Wendling. She is going to teach us how to post and how to join groups, marketplace, all that Facebook lingo that you have heard about, but you may not know how to use. So let me know if you're interested in any of those programs. And again, today was so wonderful. I see people I know, I see new faces, and I really, really appreciate you all being here.
Linda, did you have a couple of things you wanted to say? And you need to unmute.
Sure. Yeah. Just real quick, a note about the senior Kollel. Basically, we're a division of the St. Louis Kollel, and our job is to take care of the emotional, physical, and spiritual needs of the over 50 crowd, which I think most of us here today are. And you can access our website at stlkollel.com and find out more, because we have some great programs coming up too. Thank you so much for partnering today with us. It's great. Great program.
Nick, thank you so much. And if you want to, wonderful, wonderful program with lots of information to digest. And if you want to go ahead and send me, we'll email and communicate, and then I can share that information with the persons of interest today. So we appreciate everyone being here today. And again, thank you, Nick. Wonderful job.
Yeah, I'm glad I could help shed some light. I know I did a big information drop, but I'll send all that out for you so you guys can have a visual as well, and make some step-by-steps as well.
Oh, great. And you know, we might just have to have you back if you're willing. So again, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Stay warm and well.
Thanks, Max.